Okay. Probably use my Septuagint too, side by side with it. All right, here we go. We're on live, everyone. We're live to you. My mom is going to be continuing our Haftarah. Actually, my mom will be starting us off with the last portion of our Torah portion PDF today. So my mom will be reading Ecclesiastes 10 to 12. Go ahead, Mom, whenever you're ready.
Okay. As dead flies give
Yep, go ahead.
As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as he walks along the road, the fool lacks sense and shows everyone how stupid he is.
Whoops, Mom, sorry. Stupid background, man. Go ahead. Oh my goodness. Why is this going on here? The heck? Why is that on? All right. Go ahead, Mom. Sorry about that.
Okay, starting with verse 3. Even as he walks along the road, the fool lacks sense and shows everyone how stupid he is. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great errors to rest. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback, while princes go on foot like slaves. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, there is no profit for the charmer. Words from a wise man's mouth are gracious, but a fool is consumed by his own lips. At the beginning his words are folly, at the end they are wicked madness, and the fool multiplies words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell him what will happen after him? A fool's work wearies him. He does not know the way to town. Woe to you, O land, whose king was a servant, and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, whose king is of noble birth, and whose princes eat at a proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. If a man is lazy, the rafters sag. If his hands are idle, the house leaks. A feast is made for laughter, and wine makes life merry, but money is the answer for everything. Do not revile the king even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, because a bird of the air may carry your words, and a bird on the wing may report what you say. Chapter 11. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Give portions to 7, yes, to 8. For you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain upon the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there will it lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of Yahuwah, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let not your hands be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eye to see the sun. However many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. But let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. Be happy, young man, while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things, Yahuwah will bring you to judgment. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. Chapter 12. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim, when the doors to the street are closed, and the sound of grinding fades, when men rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, when men are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags himself along, and desire no longer is stirred, then man goes to his eternal home, and mourners go about the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, or the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, on the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to Yahuwah who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Not only was the teacher wise, but also he imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now, all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear Yahuwah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Yahuwah will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. I'll look something up here.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Yep.
Probably the most important verse of that reading right there is the last verse of that chapter.
Yep.
The whole duty of mankind. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see your hands up.
The verse that said, be careful what you say in the air, because a bird in the air may carry your word. I don't have an NIV in front of me, and I have my Septuagint, but the verses are in a different order. So I don't know exactly which verse that was. But the bird, be careful about what you say, because a bird in the air may carry your word. That has to be talking about unclean birds, because we know that it has to be talking about unclean birds and not just Yahuwah's messengers, because Yahuwah doesn't need for heavenly messengers to hear what we say and then go tell him what we say, because he's everywhere. He already hears what we say. But we know that Satan is not everywhere, and Satan needs his little messengers to report to him what we say, so that he can try to accuse us.
I was more thinking of it as a idiomatic expression, because we see a expression today that's pretty similar to that expression, where it says, "A little birdie told me." And I wonder if that verse is referring to the bird, a physical, literal bird, telling someone that that you've said something about them to. And I don't know, I could be reading too much into that verse, but I kind of look at it as, it's talking about don't say anything about a king, a human king, behind his back. Don't have hatred for him in your heart for what you say a bird might tell him. It just kind of reminded me of this modern saying we have, a little birdie told me something. When people say, "Oh, where did you hear that from?" I just wonder if that's where the expression originated from, is from scripture. But yeah, I could definitely see what you're getting from that, though, that the bird could be allegorical for the messengers. I could definitely see that.
Dennis and I can remember our mother saying that quite often.
Yeah. It seems like it might be a scriptural saying. It might be like an idiomatic. It might be. But I also like that, I find it interesting that certain translations do side with the Septuagint version of the chapter. Because the Septuagint says preacher, and I think the NLT will say teacher. So it's very similar. The teachers sought diligently to find out acceptable words and correct writing, words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads and as nails firmly fastened, which have been given from one shepherd by agreement. Moreover, my son, guard yourself by all means of them, making many books. I love this verse. Making many books, there is no end. Much study is weariness of the flesh. Oh, I can relate to that. Yeah. It is definitely weariness of the flesh. Let's see here. Locust. What else is in this chapter? It talks about the sun and the moon. What I really got from chapter 12 reading earlier in the week was like, be careful not to depart from Yahuwah when you're young, because when you're old, it might be too late. That's what I kind of got overall from that chapter. Mm-hmm. And let's see, Ecclesiastes 11 has some interesting stuff in it, talking about, don't be stingy, give your food to others. I think that's what the idiomatic expression means by send forth your bread upon the face of the water, for you shall find it after many days. I mean, technically in prophecy, water can mean people, so it might be idiomatic. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that, but I kind of took that as like allegorical.
I was just looking up the meaning of silver cord. I've heard of the silver
he uses
cord.
that phrase a lot.
Yeah,
like
it's basically our physical connection. While we're to biblically anyway.
Sometimes unity too. Like he talks about a 2 or 3 cord can't be easily broken when you have 2 or 3 friends with you. Sometimes he uses it like idiomatically, allegorically. When he's talking about a cord, when Solomon's talking about a cord, it could refer to strength or unity. Like sometimes it has to do with that. Let's see.
And when we die and our spirit goes back to Yahuwah, the cord is severed. The cord is broken.
I thought, and I was talking to my mom earlier this week, if you go back to chapter 11, verse 5, it seems like Yahusha's pulling from this in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament, because it says, among whom none knows what is the way of the wind. As the bones are in the womb of a pregnant woman, so you shall not know the works of Elohim, all things whatever he shall do. So we obviously see that later on. I think it's Matthew or John where he's saying, where the spirit goes, no one knows,
where it comes or where it's going.
So I wonder if he was like paraphrasing from Ecclesiastes. That's just something interesting. Let's see, what is this? It talks about idleness in this chapter. In your youth, let your heart beat. And again, the end of chapter 9 kind of continues in chapter 12, that same theme of don't forget Yahuwah when you're young, you know. And let's see here. Chapter 10 I thought was pretty interesting too, because it kind of shows like the same concept Yahusha might have been pulling from this when he talks about little leaven leavens the whole lump, or Paul, I think, says it. And if you see in verse 1 of chapter 10, it says, pestilent flies will corrupt a preparation of sweet ointment, and a little wisdom is more precious than great esteem of folly. And a lot of times Solomon talks about that too. Like you can have little possessions with righteousness is 10 times better than, you know, having all the money in the world but being foolish. Let's see, but a fool's heart is left. Whenever a fool walks by the way, his heart fails at him. All that he thinks is a folly. I really like this verse, verse 4. We can definitely apply this to, you know, our bosses at our jobs. If the spirit of the ruler rises up against you, leave not your place, for soothing will put an end to great offenses. And some other versions, like I think the NLT paraphrases it to where it gives you the meaning, and it's basically saying, you know, try your best to calm your, you know, whoever your boss is, whether it's a king, whether it's this or that. Says NLT right here. If your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes. So, yeah. Let's see. We got 2 hands raised up. All right. Let's see here. Go ahead, Sister Sadia, and then I'll let Brother Joshua go.
Okay. Where is a scripture that says that you teach your children the word, and when they get old, if they walk away, it will come back? Have you heard that? That the word does not go void, that if they walk away, it will come back to the word you taught them when they were little.
It's not just teaching. This is like due to a mistranslation of the word there. It's actually supposed to be dedicate your child in the way. And this is what, you know, this misunderstanding of this verse has led us to believe as long as we teach our children the right way when they're a child, they're automatically will come back to it. Well, really what the verse is actually saying is you dedicate your child. And this custom, Christianity obviously did not create this custom. This custom of dedicating your child to the Most High goes all the way back to Torah. Many times women that were barren could not bear children. They would pray to the father, ask him to open their womb, and sometimes the father would require them to quote unquote dedicate their child to him, i.e., Nazarite vow. So sometimes it's not enough just to train a child. You are to dedicate your children. That's what's missing today. That's why our culture thinks that, all we got to do is train our child with certain morals. And they're going to come back to us. Number one, the way. What is the way? If we really look at this verse, what does it mean to train your child in the way? It means to train him in Torah. Doesn't mean train him in Christianity. Doesn't mean train him in Catholicism or her in Catholicism, because that's not the way. So Proverbs is saying dedicate or raise up a child in the way, okay, or dedicate a child in the way, and he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So I would say there's two things that this verse is basically saying, is that yes, we are to teach them, but it has to be in Torah, in the way, fully in the way of the scriptures, and they have to be dedicated. I don't think it's just teaching them the right way, because we even see there's instances where a child is taught Torah when they're a child and they depart. And so they're it's not just teaching, it's dedicating. It has to be both. It has to be, the dedicating part has to be there. And for a perfect example of this, Samson's mom didn't just teach him Yahuwah's way, she dedicated him at birth. And what happened when Samson was like, pretty much, about to die, he repents, right before he dies. He comes back to Yahuwah, he admits he sinned and he went in error, and he comes back. But we see that part of Samson's story wasn't just that he was taught how to be a Hebrew, he was dedicated to the Father. So we see this in scripture that it's not one or the other, it's both. Mm-hmm. If you don't dedicate your child to Yahuwah, it's all null and void if you're just teaching them how to act and all that. Because if they're not being dedicated to the Father, it's kind of like you're not giving the Father what is due to him. Okay? Because according to the law of firstborn, right, what does Yahuwah say? He says every firstborn belongs to who? Me. Okay? Our children don't belong to us. And that's what we need to understand, is that Yahuwah is sovereign. Yahuwah is the creator. He's the one that gives us our children. And he deserves the dedication of our children back to him. Yeah. Like you could say in the Melchizedek priesthood is like a spiritual offering. Okay, so he deserves that. And so sometimes we wonder why our children are not coming back. That could be one of the issues. Why they don't return back to the way. So I just kind of want to expound on that and why I think people misunderstand that verse and take that verse to mean, oh, you just raise your children, to know the Bible, that they should never depart. That's not true. We see many people, many well-meaning parents try to train their children according to the Bible somewhat, and they depart and they become atheists once they're in college. So obviously there's something we're missing from this verse here that we're not doing. So just food for thought, just something to think about. Why there's so many children in this country alone that get quote unquote raised in the Bible, and then as soon as they're out of the indoctrination high school system and going into college, they depart from it immediately. So just something to think about, because it could be Yahuwah's allowing that and not protecting them from that because they're not being dedicated to him. It's very possible. It's very possible. Just something to think about. But anyway, good point, Sister Sadia, to bring that verse up. Thank you for bringing that verse up, because that's something I wanted to touch on for a while. So go ahead, Brother Joshua. Thank you for waiting.
It was an old hand, but I did want to just kind of piggyback off of that, and correct me if I say anything wrong. But when we're looking at just how they would dedicate the child, and according to the law of the firstborn, there was a sacrifice in place of the firstborn, rather than Yahuwah commanding them to do what Molech and all that nonsense, actually passing their children to the fire. But Yahuwah commanded an animal sacrifice in place of the firstborn instead. Yeah. With that being said, we see instances because we're in Babylon, or in a spiritual Babylon, we see instances in scripture where you see our ancestors in captivity, who realized that they were unable to keep certain aspects of Torah, because they were in captivity. They weren't able to do sacrifices. And you see them crying out to Yahuwah to, have mercy on them, like in Maccabees, for instance. You see them crying out to Yahuwah to have mercy upon them and to allow them to overcome their enemies, even though, they weren't able to keep certain aspects that were required to be kept. So I would say, like in our case, in dedicating, a child, even in dedicating a firstborn, I would say that the prayer needs to be the prayer needs to be there, dedicating your child, but with recognition that there is a way to go about it. There is a commandments that come with it that we are unable to keep, and that Yahuwah would have mercy upon us for not being able to keep those commandments, and that he would honor, the dedication in this captivity.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Paul does say there has been a change in the Torah. So I kind of wonder, when you're in instances like that where partially you can verbally dedicate a child with prayer and stuff like that, I wonder if in a Melchizedek priesthood, that instead of a physical sacrifice now for dedicating your child, is it the sacrifices of the bulls of our lips that are in place of that in this priesthood? I'm just posing a question, because that's something I've been thinking about lately. If that's the case, and there's a change inside the Torah, not the Torah was done away with, but there's a change inside the Torah according to what Paul says, and that means any sacrifices have to be spiritual sacrifices, I would think, in the priesthood. So
Makes sense.
it's very possible we could still keep that commandment. We just can't do it the way it's intended in the Levitical priesthood. And that's just something I'm thinking about.
My son Sean was born, I adopted him, and I did try to dedicate him to Yahweh, but there was no priesthood, and I didn't know what to do or how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just said, thank you for giving me this child, and he's yours.
Well,
and
that's
then
a lot more. Yep, go ahead, sis. I was going to say that's a lot more than most people do. So, I mean,
but the truth is, when he was a teenager, he left, and he hasn't been back.
Yeah,
I don't know if it had any effect whatsoever.
Yeah, because the only sacrifices we can do in this Melchizedek spiritual heavenly priesthood is the bulls of our lips. Multiple times that's spoken about in the scripture, and even in the Brit Hadashah, Kapha and Shaul hint that's the type of sacrifices we give in this priesthood. So the only thing people really added to what you already did for dedicating it would have been, giving you the praise of your lips, like the offerings of your lips. That's really about it. That's all that you are really expected to do in a heavenly priesthood that doesn't have physical sacrifices. So I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. I think you did the best to your ability. You knows you did the best to your ability, and I truly believe if your son is elected to be his, he will come back eventually. So
Praying for that, yes, and I would appreciate everyone to pray for that.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, definitely, yeah. But I think what Shoshana did is a very good example of how you do it. The only thing I would add would be the bulls of our lips, spiritual sacrifices of our lips when we dedicate the child. That's about the most scriptural way you can do it in this type of priesthood. Without animal sacrifices being in a Melchizedek priesthood, which they're not, you can't really do how Exodus says to do it in a Levitical priesthood. So that's not really, like Brother Joshua, to piggyback off of what he said, that's not really sin to us that we can't do it the way it's in the Levitical priesthood, because we're not in a Levitical priesthood. So yeah. I don't know if those are old hands. Just let me know, Joshua and Sadie, if there's
it's a new hand.
You're going back to a Levitical priesthood when Yahusha returns with the Zadok. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Yep. Go ahead, Joshua. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. Hold on. Sorry. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I got bad background noise. So is there, refresh my memory because I'm not sure. Is there like a specific time after the firstborn is born that you're supposed to dedicate him?
I don't think there's a specific time. I think there doesn't seem to be a limit. But most people, I think, as soon as the baby's pretty much born, I think they're pretty much with like right, mom. Even Christian tradition, they're usually dedicating them like within the first month of it being alive, out of the womb. But there's no command that says you must dedicate it before it's grown up. So but most people would dedicate it way before it's a toddler. I mean, yeah. So, even in the church, they have that concept where people actually dedicate their children. The problem is that they're dedicating their child to a wrong message and stuff like that, and not understanding who Yahuwah is. If they had the concept of Torah and all that, it would be a lot better when they're dedicating their child, in my opinion, and have the right Besorah, the right good news when they're dedicating their child. They wouldn't depart. I think that's part of the issue too. Not with Shoshana, but with Christian parents that dedicate their children. They're not raising them in the way, so they have the other part wrong. So they're dedicating their child who they think is the creator, and even if Yahuwah is honoring that, they're not doing their responsibility, if that makes any sense. By not raising the child in Torah, you're doing them a disservice, because if they're not being taught how they're supposed to behave and how they're supposed to be children dedicated to the Father, they're gonna live worldly lives by default. They're gonna. It's the old adage of nature versus nurture concept. So if you're not nurturing them to be in the way, like Proverbs 22:6 says, by default, they're gonna act like children of the world, and they're gonna copy their peers and all that. I'm a living example of that. But see, I'm example also, and I would say Brother Joshua, I think he would agree, he's an example of the exceptions to this rule on the other side of the paradigm, where we were never trained at all in the way whatsoever. And yet Yahuwah brought us into the fold from a completely, pagan upbringing, especially on my part. I would say completely pagan upbringing on my dad's side. The father brought me back, and he brought me as a prodigal child into his fold, despite my upbringing, the training that I got from one of my parents, I was still brought into the fold. So this is not, I want to make it clear, this verse is not saying that if your child, because you were ignorant of Torah and you didn't train them in the way, it doesn't mean that they can't still be elected. I want to make that extremely clear. It's not, basically, this is not a guarantee either way. About this verse. I think people they take this verse to extreme literal, and they think just because a child's been raised in Torah that they'll always come back, or vice versa. Ultimately, Yahuwah is the deciding factor. Ultimately. Now, Proverbs 22:6 does command us to do this, though, to dedicate and train the child in the way. So we should do it if we want to be obedient to Yahuwah's commands, which I know we've been taught, certain people in Jewish backgrounds have been taught, well, the Torah stops in Deuteronomy. I would disagree with that. This is Torah right here in the book of Proverbs. Okay. This is an instruction. This is not, what is it called, Mom? When people make fun of, like, it's not a suggestion. Ooh, you're right, Mom?
Yeah, I just got a little.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's not a suggestion. It says to do this. So this is definitely a command of the Father, way past the first 5 books of Moses, mind you. Okay. So again, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. What Yahuwah considers Torah versus what Judaism considers Torah. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But anyway, I just thought I would mention it just to explain what Sister Sadia brought up with that verse and how we've misunderstood that verse somewhat and thought it's only talking about training versus actually training and dedicating together. So Anyway, so let's move on here. I think I'm going to be starting with Malachi for us now. So we're going to be going to Malachi, and I'll be reading Malachi 1 to 4. I'll probably have my Septuagint opened up too, just in case. I know there's going to be weird differences here. But usually the NLT usually consults the Septuagint, so it shouldn't be as different as other translations. So let's see here. 1469. So page 1469 in my translation here. Okay. Just make sure I got my Lexham here. Okay. All right. Oh, and by the way, we've done a full comparison differences in the book of Malachi study. If you want to look that up, I'll share the playlist I have after we do this study. So anyone that wants to look up the differences with the Masoretic text versus Septuagint versions of the book of Malachi, feel free. I got a whole playlist of different books we've done for that type of study. We've done most of the prophets so far.
Did you know Malachi means my messenger?
Yep.
The name Malachi?
Yep. Malachi means messenger. Yep. Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. I think I'll read from the NLT here just to kind of do a little change of pace here. The New Living Translation. Okay, so you see here, where's Malachi in my Septuagint here, just to have it side by side. Okay, page 1066. Okay, here we go, the book of Malachi. This is the message that Yahuwah gave to Yasharal through the prophet Malachi. Yahuwah's love for Yasharal. Okay, I have always loved you, says Yahuwah. But you retort, really, how have you loved us? And Yahuwah replies, this is how I showed my love to you, your ancestor Yaakov, but I rejected his brother Esau and devastated his hill country. I turned Esau's inheritance into a desert for jackals. And this is what I would call a perfect example of predestination. Before Esau even sinned, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yahuwah chose Jacob, not Esau. Just saying, okay? Perfect example of the vessels of honor, vessels of wrath paradigm, okay? Esau's descendants in Edom may say, we have been shattered, but we will rebuild the ruins. But Yahuwah of heaven's armies replies, and I love how they paraphrase hosts as heaven's armies, way more accurate, in my opinion. Okay. They may try to rebuild, but I will demolish them again. Their country will be known as the land of wickedness. Their people will be called the people of whom Yahuwah is forever angry. When you see the destruction for yourselves, you will say, truly, Yahuwah's greatness reaches far beyond Yasharal's borders. Here we go. Unworthy sacrifices. Yahuwah heaven's army says to the priests, a son honors his father. A servant respects his master. If I am your father and master, where are the honor and respect I deserve? You have contempt for my name. But you ask, how have we ever shown contempt for your name? You have shown contempt by offering defiled sacrifices on my altar. Then you ask, how have we defiled the sacrifices? You defile them by saying, the altar of Yahuwah deserves no respect. Kind of sounds like someone else in the New Testament we know. Oh, you say whatever a son gives to his parents is Corban. When you give blind animals as sacrifices, isn't that wrong? And isn't it wrong to offer sacrifices that are crippled and diseased? Try giving gifts like that to your governor.
Yeah.
See how pleased he is, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. Go ahead, beg Elohim to be merciful to you. But when you bring that kind of offering, why should he show you favor at all. Ask Yahuwah of heaven's armies, how I will one of you would shut the temple doors so that these worthless sacrifices could no longer be offered. Now, I want to make it a statement here, because I know some Christians, when they read this chapter or other chapters like Isaiah chapter 1, they get the idea that Yahuwah hates his feasts and his sacrifices. Listen, no. He doesn't hate his feast that he gave them. He doesn't hate the sacrifices that he gave them. He hates the sacrifices that they give to him and the feasts that they keep to him, because they are doing it with an unright heart, number one. Number two, they probably were mixing it with pagan customs and stuff like that at this point in time. So they weren't doing it right. They were doing it in their own way to Yahuwah. They went in the way of Cain, you know. I am not pleased with you, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies, and I will not accept your offerings, but my name is honored by people of other nations from morning till night. All around the world, they offer sweet incense and pure offerings in honor of my name. Gentiles honoring his name, but not his own people. Where have we heard that before? Is that still today? A religion that claims to honor him, that tries to hide his name. Interesting. For my name is great among the Gentiles or nations, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. But you dishonor my name, and with your actions, by bringing contemptible food, you are saying it's all right to defile Yahuwah's table. You say it's too hard to serve Yahuwah. Where have we heard that before? The law is too hard. The law is a burden. It's a yoke of bondage. What has been is what shall be. And you turn up your nose at my commands, says Yahuwah of armies, of heaven's armies. Think of it. Animals that are stolen and crippled and sick are being presented as offerings. Should I accept from you such offerings as these? Asks Yahuwah. Cursed is the cheat who promises to give a fine ram from his flock, but then sacrifices a defective one to Yahuwah. For I am a great king, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies, and my name is feared among the Gentiles. A lot of important stuff in that chapter. Kind of interesting prophecy there that his name is honored among the Gentiles. Interesting. Especially since a lot of us that are grafted in are, Gentile born. I just find that interesting. And we're the ones that are honoring his name. So I just find that interesting. A warning to the priests. Listen, you priests, this command is for you. Listen to me and make up your minds to honor my name, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. Or I will bring a terrible curse against you. I will curse even the barakah you receive. Indeed, I have already cursed them because you have not taken my wanting heart. I will punish your descendants and splatter your faces with manure from your festival sacrifices, and I will throw you on the manure pile. Then at last you will know it was I who sent you this warning so that my covenant with the Levites can continue, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. The purpose of my covenant with the Levites was to bring life and peace. And that is what I gave them. This required reverence from them. And they greatly revered me and stood in awe of my name. They passed on to the people the truth of the instructions they received from me. They did not lie or cheat. They walked with me, living tov and righteous lives. They turned many from lives of sin. The words of a priest's lips should preserve the knowledge of Elohim, and people should go to him for instruction. For the priest is the messenger of Yahuwah of heaven's armies. But you priests have left Elohim's paths. Your instructions have caused many to stumble into sin. You have corrupted the covenant I made with the Levites, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. So I have made you despised and humiliated in the eyes of all the people, for you have not obeyed me, but have shown favoritism in the way you carry out my instructions. I wonder if that's happening today. Favoritism. Interesting thought. Are we not all children of the same Father? Are we not all created by the same Elohim? Then why do we betray each other, violating the covenant of our ancestors? Yehuda has been untrustworthy, and a detestable thing has been done in Yasharal and in Jerusalem. The men of Yehuda have defiled Yahuwah's beloved set apart place by marrying women who worship idols. Yeah, they've done the same thing as Solomon. May Yahuwah cut off from the nation of Yasharal every last man who has done this and brings an offering to Yahuwah of heaven's armies. Here is another thing you do. You cover Yahuwah's altar with tears, weeping and groaning, because he pays no attention to your offerings and doesn't accept them with pleasure. You cry out, why does Yahuwah accept my worship? I'll tell you why. Because Yahuwah witnessed the vows you and your wife made when you were young, but you have been untrustworthy to her, though she remained your trustworthy partner. The wife of your marriage vows, okay, notice how there has to be marriage vows and a covenant to be married, okay? Didn't Yahuwah make you one with your wife? In body and spirit, you are his. And what does he want? Righteous children from your union. And we just talked about that with, obviously, still on the screen, Proverbs 22:6. You could cite there. So guard your heart. Remain loyal to the wife of your youth. For I hate putting away. Does not say divorce there, okay? He does not hate divorce. He hates putting away, unlawful putting away. The context of this chapter is that these men were hating the wife of their youth and putting them away for no viable reason. According to Torah, the only viable reason to put away your wife is whoredom or adultery. You can't just put away your wife because you don't like her cooking or this and that. And that was the problem with the Pharisees. They were trying to get Yahusha to trip up and say, yeah, it's okay to divorce your wife if you don't like that she's gained a little bit of weight or she doesn't cook right. That's what the Pharisees taught, and that's what the Talmud teaches. Anyway, says Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal, to divorce your wife is to overwhelm her with cruelty, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. So guard your heart, do not be untrustworthy to your wife. You have wearied Yahuwah with your words. How have we wearied him, you ask? You have wearied him by saying that all who do evil are tob in Yahuwah's sight, and he is pleased with them. You have wearied him by asking, where is the Elohim of right ruling? Okay, we're about to start Malachi chapter 3. Okay, so Malachi chapter 3, and I'm reading from the NLT here. Not seeing much difference really with the Septuagint, so if anyone sees a difference, just let me know, but it seems to be pretty on the mark here. Okay, the coming day of right ruling. Look, I am sending my messenger. He will prepare the way for me, before me. Then Yahuwah, you are seeking, will suddenly come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant, or the Malach of the covenant, whom you look for so eagerly, is surely coming, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. And I would assert that the messenger of the covenant, the angel of the covenant, is referring to Yahusha, and I'll give my reasons why after I finish this chapter. Okay, but who will be able to endure it when he comes? Who will be able to stand and face him when he appears? For he will be like a blazing fire that refines metal, or like a strong soap that bleaches clothes. He will sit like a refiner of silver, burning away the dross. He will purify the Levites, refining them like gold and silver, so that they may once again offer acceptable sacrifices to Yahuwah. Now, mind you, this is a second coming context. So just keep in mind, this is talking about Levites after the second coming. There's going to be Levites in a millennium context serving Yahuwah in a physical temple in Jerusalem. That's the context. Okay. Then once more, Yahuwah will accept offerings brought to him by the people of Yehudah and Jerusalem as he did in the past. At that time, I will put you on trial. I am eager to witness against all the sorcerers and adulterers and liars. I will speak against those who cheat employees of their wages. Oh, I can't wait for that. Oh, I can't wait for that. Yeah, get them, Yahuwah. Get these every 2 weeks, employers. Thank you. Please do that. Who oppress the widows and orphans, or who deprive the foreigners living among you of righteousness, for these people do not fear me, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. A call to repentance. I am Yahuwah, and I do not change. That is why you descendants of Jacob are not already destroyed. And just FYI, this is where it starts getting a little different. Just to let you know, there is no that verse that says, this is why you're not consumed. The Septuagint does not have that phrase. So I just find that interesting. The Septuagint would just say in that same verse, for I am Yahuwah your Elohim, I am not changed. And then that's it. So the Masoretes could have added in there, this is why you're not consumed. So I just find it interesting. Anyway. Verse 7, ever since the days of your ancestors, you have scorned my decrees and failed to obey them. Now return to me, and I will return to you, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. But you ask, how can we return when we have never gone away? Oh, that's funny. Should people cheat Elohim, yet you have cheated me? But you ask, what do you mean? When did we ever cheat you? You have cheated me of the tithes and offerings due to me. You are under a curse, for your whole nation has been cheating me. Bring all the tithes into the storehouses, so there will be enough food in my temple. Christian pastors out there, hey, Earth to McFly, he's telling you it's not money, okay? Any pastors that are watching, stop using this verse to steal money from your congregation, okay? I'm sorry, I get a little passionate about that because that's highway robbery, the way they twist that verse. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
The only difference between that and the Septuagint would be that the Septuagint doesn't say that you're under a curse.
Interesting. Huh, that's interesting. I guess they felt the need to add that in. I don't know. It could be that at the time the Septuagint's being written, they already know they're under a curse. I guess maybe the Masoretes felt the need to add it in there. I don't know. Sometimes they do that a lot. The Masoretic text will just like add things that don't need to be added in there. kind of like reiterating something that's already understood. But yeah, that's a good catch there. That's a good catch. I'm gonna write that down. So the verse 9 is, I guess, not there then. Okay, or the under a curse of part of verse 9. So let's see here. Malachi 3:9. LXX lacks under a curse. Okay. Okay, bring all the tithes to our house, and there will be enough food in my temple. If you do, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies, I will open the windows of heaven. For you, I will pour out a baraka so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. Your crops will be abundant. I will guard them from insects and disease. Your grapes will not fall from the vine before they are ripe, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. Then all the nations will call you Baruch, for your land will be such a delight, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. The only thing I don't like about the way they translated that verse is put me to the test. I don't personally, I don't like that. I think they need to, that's a case where they're adding to the text with their paraphrase there. They need to stop doing that. Yeah. Because if you look at the Septuagint version of the verse, it just says, I will appoint food for you. It doesn't say put me to the test. I will appoint food for you, and I will not destroy the fruit of your land. Your vine in the field shall not fail, says Yahuwah Almighty. So, yeah, they're adding to the text there. So, yeah, that's just thing to keep in mind with these paraphrase Bibles, like the NLT, the Living Bible, and all of them. They sometimes are adding to the text when they do a paraphrase. You have said terrible things about me, says Yahuwah. But you said, what do you mean? What have we said against you? You have said, what's the use of serving Elohim? What have we gained by obeying his commands, or by trying to show Yahuwah of heaven's armies that we are sorry for our sins? So this is showing here that your works, Tim, are nothing but rags. Like you're just trying to be a better person. And Yahuwah is showing them that being a better person, you're not going to earn favor with me by your works. That's not how you do it. You got to repent. You don't just, I'm going to do better. And you see that with a lot of today's leaders. Oh yeah, I sin, but I try to be a better person every day. No, that doesn't cut it. You have to repent. Okay. From now on, we will call the arrogant Baruch, for those who do evil get rich, and those who dare Elohim to punish them suffer in harm. Yahuwah's promise of mercy. Then those who feared Yahuwah spoke with each other, and Yahuwah listened to what they said. In his presence, a scroll of remembrance was written to record the names of those who feared him and always thought about the honor of his name. Now, this is a huge difference, and I don't blame the NLT here. This is mainly the Masoretic text that's the problem. They say those that think upon his name. No. Okay. It should say, according to the LXX 2012 here, the Septuagint, says, Yahuwah gave heed and listened, verse 16 here, and he wrote a book of remembrance before him for them that feared Yahuwah and reverenced his name. Okay. Not just thinking upon his name. Okay. Huge difference there. Just to think upon his name is not enough. You should be reverencing his name. Okay. Because the same thing with Judaism today. They think upon his name, but do they use it? It's the same thing. They will be my people, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. On the day when I act in right ruling, they will be my own treasure, special treasure. I will spare them as a father spares an obedient child. Then you will again see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between those who serve Elohim and those who do not. So that's the end of chapter 3 there. So you see a special baraka for those that reverence his name. Okay, the coming day of judgment. So this would also be known as the day of Yahuwah, the day of his wrath. Yahuwah of heaven's army says, the day of right ruling is coming, burning like a furnace. On that day, the arrogant and the wicked will be burned up like straw. They will be consumed, roots, branches, and all. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise, and healing in his wings. And you will go free, leaping like joy from the calves let out to pasture. On the day when I act, you will tread upon the wicked as if they were dust under your feet, says Yahuwah of heaven's armies. Remember to obey the law of Masha. Wow, I got to give NLT credit here. It actually says, doesn't just say remember, it says remember to obey the law of Moses. NLT, I'll give you some credit on that. All the decrees and regulations that I gave him on Mount Sinai for all Yasharal. Now notice, this is something I never caught before. It says all the regulations were given to him on Mount Sinai. So this tradition that I'm pretty sure we all heard this in the church, like, oh, he only gave us the 10 commandments on tablets of stone at Mount Sinai. He didn't give the rest of the law until later. Well, according to Malachi, that's incorrect. He's saying that all the regulations were given to them at Mount Sinai. So that's not just the 2 tablets of stone. That's the whole, whatever you want to call it traditionally, the 613, all of them. Pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, that would be hinting that the whole law was given to them at Mount Sinai, not just 10 commandments. Okay. Look, I am sending you the prophet Elijah before the great and dreadful day of Yahuwah arrives. His preaching will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, the hearts of the children to their fathers. Otherwise, I will come and strike the land with a curse. So that's the end of our reading today. There's definitely going to be some stuff I want to touch on here, going back to chapter 3 here. In verse 1, it references this person called the messenger or angel of the covenant. Now, it's very interesting. This phrase is only used one time in our regular Old Testament, Bibles today. But if you look at the Targums, this is a phrase used for the angel of Yahuwah multiple times. So this is the same person as Yahusha. The Targums make it very clear that this is Yahusha that it's referring to. Let me just give you an example here with the messenger of Yahuwah that went to Hagar in Genesis 16. Okay, just one example. Be great if this wasn't so slow here. Okay, hold on here. Let's see here, 24, 12. All right, hold on. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, so we got Hagar, the misright handmaiden. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, the angel of Yahuwah. Verse 7 here, it says, and the angel of Yahuwah found her at the fountain of waters in the desert, at the fountain of waters, which is in the way to Chagra. Okay, let me see here. It might be a different Targum. Let me just see here real quick. It might be the Unkalos one, possibly. I know one of them paraphrased it as the angel of the covenant. All right. Let's see here. Just want to check something real quick because I know I've seen it in the Targums where they use this phrase a lot. So my word in you. Here we go. Genesis 16:14. and starting at verse 13 to show you the oneness picture here. Genesis 16:13-14 of the Targum Onkelos, it says, and she prayed in the name of Yahuwah who had spoke to her. But wait a minute, didn't the angel of Yahuwah speak to her? And she said, you are Alua, seeing all. For she said, I also have begun to see after that he has been revealed to me. Therefore she called the name of the well at which appeared the angel of the covenant. Behold, it is between Rakam and Hagra, which again parallels what we just read in Malachi here, where Malachi 3 is likening the messenger of Yahuwah, as the same person. So I find that very interesting. Let's see here. So
I have one thing I wanted to bring
yep,
up.
go ahead, Mom.
You might not be going this far yet, but in chapter 3, I remembered you saying concerning the offering from the Levites,
Yeah.
you had said an acceptable
Yeah.
offering, I think is what your translation said.
Yeah.
And I just, as this is a rare thing, but I kind of like the way it is in the NIV a little bit better. It says that it will be a offering in righteousness.
Yeah, let me see here. They're probably paraphrasing it as what they're doing in the NLT. Yeah, almost every literal word for word will say righteousness. The Septuagint says sacrifice and righteousness, almost every, which again is interesting because the NIV, if the Septuagint's the only other one that does that, then the NIV's pretty much using the Septuagint's rendering.
They do. They really do.
So that's another reason why I sometimes look at the NIV, because they a lot of the times they consult with the Septuagint. A lot of the times. Let me see here. So remember the law of Moses, remember to obey. We already talked about that. Cheat of me of the tithes and the offerings. We already talked about that. And what the context of that was, your ancestors. What I found interesting is that there's a verse here in chapter 3 where they're claiming that when have we departed from you? And I started scornfully cracking up because I'm like, I think someone has, what is it called, Mom, when you get hit on the head? Amnesia. I think they got a little amnesia there because they forget how from the beginning,
Yep.
they departed from him.
That's a lot of nerve right there, man. That's a
My
lot
goodness,
of
you want to talk
wrestling.
about amnesia there, man. Woof. From the beginning, we could go to, what is it? Let's see here. A couple other cross references you can use where clearly they depart from him very early. Amos talks about it. Amos talks about that. Did you offer me sacrifices in 40 years of the wilderness? No, you took up the star of your deity, Remphan. Okay, so all the way from the wilderness times, they were not worshiping Yahuwah.
No.
I mean, you had a minority. Yeah, you had a minority of leadership like Moshe and Aaron and a few individuals, but the majority of them were steeped in idolatry and they never departed from it. And that's why it's blasphemous for them to claim that they never departed from him. It's just crazy. But I see how us today we selfishly think that, oh well, we're trying our best, so we never departed from you. No, the moment we put someone else above him, we have departed from him. So we really need to humble ourselves and look at our spiritual forefathers' mistakes and not make the same mistakes. But yeah, that's what I got from these chapters here. I really liked, again, how the NLT translated chapter 4. I thought they did a great job. For the most part, they did a decent job with these chapters, except for that one verse where they're adding in test me.
Yeah.
That was like, come on, guys, that's not even paraphrase anymore. Now you're adding to the text. So other than that, I was impressed how well they translate, especially with the remember the law of Moses. They say remember to obey. They add in obey there. I kind of like that. So anyway, that's the end of our Haftarah reading today. I hope all of you got something out of it. We might take a minor break. We might get back on today. We might not, depending on how the group's feeling and if we got enough energy in us.
We could throw the heat on just for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I'll freeze.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, please stay tuned, everyone. We will start, Yahuwah willing, we will be starting a new Torah portion document in the next couple of weeks, Yahuwah willing. So please stay tuned, everyone. Please stay tuned with the next topical studies that we have coming up. I will be doing a debunking of the Book of Jubilees, a debunking of the Book of Tobit. So please stay tuned for those two studies. I think you'll enjoy it. And thank you, our brothers and sisters who have stopped by today. Have a great rest of your Shabbat to our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahushua Messiah. Have a great rest of your Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.